Hello friend, Chris here. Today I'm going to show you how to get 10,000 or 10K a day. 10,000 steps that is. Now, have you ever wondered why it's 10,000 steps? If you're on this pedometer craze in the last few years here with, Apple and Samsung and Fitbit and all of these manufacturers of these extravagant high-tech pedometers essentially, and if you're on that wagon right now, have you ever wondered why it's not 15,000 steps or 20,000 steps? Why is it 10,000 steps? And here's why. There's an interesting backstory. It's called Menpoke, and that's Japanese for 10,000 steps. You see, what happened back in the 60s when pedometers were first started being used is these Japanese walking clubs used to strive for 10,000 steps a day, and it sort of became the fashion, became the norm, it became the target for them to get 10,000 steps per day, and that stuck. And then what happened was scientists picked up on that, and they started testing different subjects for health benefits at 10,000 steps per day, and it worked. They did two major studies, both with women, and one of them over a 24-week period, walking over a 24-week period, significantly reduced blood pressure. Another one significantly reduced weight. And in fact, there's a national weight loss registry. It's a big program down in the States. And I mention a lot in my book, The All-Inclusive Diet. It actually says that about 75% of all the subjects that are in this weight loss registry use walking as an activity to keep the weight off, because that's what that particular program is all about. It's not just losing the weight, but keeping the weight off. So there's lots of data that's showing that 10,000 steps is the magic number. But here is the problem. Average, we're doing about 3,000 steps per day. So I don't know about you, my friend, if you're using some sort of activity tracking device and what you're getting on average, but the average North American who is sedentary is only getting about 3,000 steps per day or less. Now, why is that a problem? And it was described to me as an analogy, looking at your phone and knowing that when you go into low battery mode, that it goes into low power mode. It immediately dawned on me that that's exactly what happens in our bodies, that when we get sedentary, when we sit for too long, either at our desk or in our car, that we go into low power mode. And what I mean by that is the same that a phone basically channels all of its resources just to the essentials, right? Just to the apps that are you're actually working on, for example. The same thing happens in our body. We have all these systems too. We have our digestive system, our circulatory system, our nervous system. So what our body does when we're in a sedentary or sitting position for too long is it shuts down all of the non-essential systems, which sometimes include really important systems like our circulatory system, our nervous system. But of course, we're giving our body the indication that those aren't important systems at that time because we're sitting on our butts and we're turned off. We're not turned on. So really important systems like metabolism, for example, are going to be turned off if we're doing too much sitting. So that's why it's really important to A, be aware of your steps, and B, to strive for this 10,000 step mark. And today what I'm going to show you is 4 really easy ways and natural ways to get 10,000 steps per day. So first one, number 1, the Pomodoro Technique, and how you can use this technique to get 10,000 steps per day. First of all, what is the Pomodoro Technique? It's a really interesting method that's been around for probably about 20 years now. It's becoming really popular with performance and productivity. So really long story short is there was an Italian university student that used a Pomodoro timer. If you've ever seen these, it's a timer that you would put on your stove, and it's shaped as a tomato. And essentially he was using that timer to find out where he could optimize his productivity and his performance, and how many minutes he could stay laser beam focused without getting distracted before he needed a break. And the magic number was 25 minutes, and he went on to do a lot of research, and a lot of scientists got on board, and they really determined that if we're looking for high performance and high productivity, that we can only stay focused on one task for 25 minutes. That goes for just about everything. Could be, desk work on the computer. It could be music. It could be athletics. Just about any task that we really want to get good at and get the most out of. So I took that and I said the breaks that are being incorporated in this technique, these 5-minute breaks after 25 minutes of work, why can't we get up and move during these 5 minutes? So I tested it out with a client that I was coaching, and she was overweight, she was depressed, and she also wasn't getting 10,000 steps per day, and she was also working in a call center. So she was doing a lot of sitting, and obviously her systems were turned off, her body was turned off. So that led to lower back problems and, deepened that depression just because, she wasn't active. She wasn't turned on throughout the day. And, getting to work, she was also sitting, and coming home from work, she was sitting. So when I looked at her day, I think it was about 15 or 16 hours she was spending sitting. And it's really hard to make up for that. So what I told her to do was to use this Pomodoro technique and to do her work for 25 minutes, but to make sure, okay, and she would have a timer on for this, to step away from her desk for 5 minutes. And not only was she refreshing her mind so she could go back to maximum performance in her job, but she was also taking a quick walk. Okay, it would be a walk around the building. It would be a walk up, to the next floor, or down to a floor, and maybe to the water fountain. It was any type of movement in a 5-minute interval, and then back to work for 25 minutes. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but here's the thing, my friend. When it comes to everyday natural movement, it just adds up, and it's really interesting because you don't feel it. We feel the gym when we go to the gym, and that's why I call that makeup movement. We're making up perhaps for what we're not doing during the day. For most of us anyways, that are most of the time sedentary. So this is an interesting way of fitting movement into your day, making sure that you take a lunch, for example, and make sure that during that lunch that you're active, that maybe you're going out for a walk with a coworker, or again, you're just moving around the building, you're getting out of your desk and out of the office. And not only is that good for your mind, but it's also what your body needs. Naturally, we're made to move. And in our society, we're really put in a situation because of all the technology and the high-paced environments that we put ourselves into. The only thing that we can focus on is our cognitivity and not our physiology. So we're really missing that. And naturally, we're made to scavenge and to forage and to toil and to sow and to do what I'm doing right now, and this is just not happening. So to get this going through the day and just a little bit more of this, it adds up, and before you know it, you can hit that 10,000 marker. So the Pomodoro Technique, look it up. There's lots of apps and timers that you can get yourself set up with that will really give you the notification and maybe even the buzzer or the bell to get you out of your desk and start moving. Number 2, start a social movement. Where I'm from here in Toronto, it's beautiful weather, and this is a big catalyst, and it's a motivating force to get us outside in nature where we really belong. Now, I don't know about you, but when I step outside, when I've been on the computer for hours and hours, I immediately get this sense of relief. It's indescribable, and it's instantaneous, and that's what really baffles me. It blows me away that nature has that effect on me, and it might have that effect on you too. Give this a shot. Just step outside your office or your workplace, or if you're working at home, just get outside just for a minute. And everything just opens up. There's just so much more space out there, and it brings me to this relaxed state. Now, I can go further, and I do, and that's what I'd like you to do in regards to making this a social movement, by not only going outside just to take your breaks, but going outside with other people and getting social. But while you're getting social, instead of sitting on your butt, I want you to be busting the move on the pavements and pounding the pavements, just getting into a walk and using that as your social time versus the typical cafes where we're sitting around and we're relaxing. But remember, we're turned off at that point. So we can have the best of both worlds. And you might notice, typically our physiology always matches our psychology. So you'll notice that when you're out socializing, that you're just a lot more invigorated, you're more energetic, and the conversation reflects that as well. It usually is a positive conversation, and it's motivating, and these are the kinds of conversations that we want, versus perhaps gossiping and getting into, past problems and just things that drag you down. So you'll find that when you get out with friends and get moving with them, and it could be just simple walking, or even get yourself into a walking group, for example, that kind of movement, that social movement, is the most energetic and invigorating type of time that you can spend with other people. So next, number 3, get a walkie talkie. And I learned this myself because I do spend a lot of time on the phone when I'm coaching people, and I would look down at my activity tracking device and I would notice, or not notice, that I got 2,000 steps. I don't notice it because, I'm basically coaching people. But while I'm doing that, I've got a headset on and I'm walking around. And because I'm walking around, that keeps me energetic and invigorated. And the coaching that I'm able to do, when my body is turned on and correspondingly my mind is in hyperdrive, I'm really able to help people, to the level that I expect of myself. Now, I know a lot of people that I've coached have a hard time with getting on a phone call and standing up, let alone actually walking, walking, in your office, or just, walking, standing still, or walking back and forth and fidgeting and these kinds of things. Like any type of movement that's going to activate your psychology as well. They tend to have a hard time with that. And this usually is a habit. They tell me, Chris, I can't concentrate when I'm moving back and forth. I look like I got ADHD or something, or, it just doesn't seem natural to me. But work with it, give it a shot, be open mind, be willing to try this, because you'll notice what I notice, that the steps just accumulate so naturally and effortlessly that you get to 10,000 steps by the end of the day, even if you can't make it into the gym that particular day. And that's just an amazing thing, that we're able to get all the steps we need without having to always make up for it and really push the limits at the gym. I think that's fantastic as well, but let's face it, we can't always get into the gym. So we really got to look at, if we're going to be awake for 15, 16, 17, 18 hours a day, then how much natural movement can we get in during that day, so that A, we're turned on, B, all the critical systems that we need turned on, are activated, our circulatory system, digestive system, our nervous system, and we get more of the day in that turned on state that we so desperately need, because, we're being forced to do too much sitting during the day. Now, last but not least, number 4, Housework and Yardwork, are the new workout. And what I mean by that is, this is something else that was revealed to me. I'm not a big fan of housework. I'm not a big fan of yard work. I do what I got to do, and I like to have a neat and tidy, clean place. But when I found out that, again, I can get 2,000, 3,000 steps just by doing what I have to do anyways, it was a bit more of a rewarding experience. So that's what I want you to be aware of as well. And if you haven't already got an awareness activity tracking device, I want you to look into that. The one that I suggest and the one I'm wearing here tonight is the Fitbit. There's, a dime a dozen out there really, and they are, cost effective, the base models. I want you to invest in that. And if you've invested in it and it's, tucked away somewhere, take it out, start wearing it, and really get aware of your steps. Now, I want to let you know as well, and this is a mistake that a lot of people make. This 10,000 steps, right? We know what its origins are now, and it's an arbitrary number. It's got some studies backing it, but at the end of the day, if I've only got 8,000 steps at the end of the day, I'm not feeling guilty whatsoever. And in fact, with most of the clients I coach, that's one of the starting targets that I use. I don't use 10,000. because it's not easy to get 10,000. It really isn't. It takes some dedicated focus throughout the day and using perhaps, those 4 tips that I gave you, because otherwise you're going to be spending a lot of time in the gym making up for it. So I set a really realistic number which will give them all of those health benefits, 8,000 steps, but without all the pressure of trying to get to 10,000 steps per day. Now I have other people who are really motivated and are really active, and they've got some crazy targets. Crazy for me because my target is anywhere from 8 to 10,000, but their targets are 15 all the way up to 20,000. So it all depends on your lifestyle. People sometimes have a little bit more flexibility to incorporate more movement in their day. They might be a little bit more active. If you're playing sports, for example, that's an easy way to accumulate a lot of steps in a short amount of time. But for the typical person, it's going to be a challenge for us. And I don't want you to beat yourself down if you don't get to that 10,000 mark. To give you some more insight of what 10,000 steps really looks like, every 2,000 steps, is about 1 mile. So if you look at it from a 10,000 steps per day target perspective, you're going to have to get about 5 miles of walking. So that's no easy feat. That's 5 miles per day. So it will take a lot of natural everyday movement, exactly what I'm doing right now, to accumulate those steps, because otherwise we're going to be forced to make up that movement either with sports or with the gym, and those things are great. But imagine if you already got your 10,000 steps per day just with natural everyday movement, then you still go and play some hockey or play some sports and maybe still go to the gym. Then you'll be in that 12,000, 15, maybe even 18,000 steps per day range, which would just be amazing, because the average person, as I said, only gets about 3,000 steps per day, and that's what I typically get. If I'm always aware, I'm always in tune with my activity tracking, and if I'm plugged into the computer all day, then that's typically when I only get 3,000 steps. It happens to me, it really does. And I don't beat myself down for it. I'm just aware of it. And the next day, I make sure that I go out for a walk, for example, to make up for, perhaps what I didn't get the day prior. So that's just being aware. It's not being hypercritical. We've got enough pressure on ourselves right now. So again, don't make that mistake to think that the 10,000 is the be all end all. It's all personal preference. It's all what works for you. I just want you to work it continuously throughout the day versus trying to pack it all in and make it up in one sitting. So the intention, and I hope that I've achieved it right now, is I want you to turn yourself on. I want you to turn your body on, and in doing so, you're going to turn your mind on as well. You're going to activate, all of those systems that are really going to sleep. You're going to wake yourself up. You're going to be able to burn more calories throughout the day. You're going to have less aches and pains, especially low back pain. And you're just generally going to be happier. You're going to be in a different state that you can only get into, when your psychology matches your physiology. And this is what scientists have proved time and time again. And if you ever doubt it, then just try some of these techniques and get off of the chair just for 5 minutes. Get outside, just for a couple of minutes to breathe some air and get some space and look at your state. Be really subjective about it and ask yourself, how do I feel now that I've gotten off of the chair and I've started moving? And I guarantee, my friend, that you'll notice a significant change, not only in your physiology, but also in your psychology as well. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. Make sure you get your move on, 10K per day or Mempo K. This is Chris signing off.